curator and I would say the translator, but also much more, in my opinion, kind of a cultural broker who tries to put down borders and then to smuggle real culture between different contexts. So she's doing much more than just showing what, for example, Ukrainian artists are doing. She's very active in the real translation of their work and senses which are hidden in this processes. So I had the pleasure to meet Anna for the first time in 2013. I remember in Kyiv during the Revolution of Dignity, and she was a source of knowledge about what's going on then. It was very important. So since then we were quite often having opportunity to work together. And I'm Bendyk, journalist for Politica Weekly, and I'm also running the Stefan Batory Foundation, who is quite involved in cooperation between Poland and Ukraine, especially on the level of civic organizations. So we are doing a lot of things there, and so this discussion and the topic of it is very important for me. Okay, so let's begin, and I'd like to start with very simple question, but a basic one, I think. Aleftina said a lot during her introduction about this, but I'd like to follow this problem of art and culture in time of war. So who is traveling to Ukraine in time of Great War can see something incredible. So for me, I am traveling quite often there. So every time I am impressed by the energy of cultural life. So it's quite something impossible to see, unbelievable to see full bookshops and new bookshops which are opened during time of war. So only in Kyiv last year there were more than 20 new bookshops opened, and the bookshelves are full, and people are queuing for events like book fairs, the Niccolò Arsenał. I could see people queuing for hundreds of meters just to get in, to visit their writers and then to buy books and so on. So the same is when we talk about theaters, about galleries, about concert halls. They are full of people, in spite of all these nasty and terrible things we can see from media. So my question to Aleftina is, what is it to be an artist during this time? What is driving you to do what you are doing? So what kind of, because sometimes we think that in times like this there are more, let's say, more important things to do. It's about survival. It's about finding a way to live simply in this condition. So what is the driving force for you to do what you are doing? Yeah.
Actually, to be an artist in the country with so many of my friends who are also artists on front lines is privilege. So it's not really such a heroism. First of all, so every day you have this feeling of guilt and privilege to be an artist. Second, of course, it's surviving. Some artists or who were artists don't produce anything. For them it's hard. They are arguing with the people who do produce something. We have arguments inside of our art sphere. Then of course you're trying to transform what you do understand as human being in the war to the language which is so much about to be universal for the people who are not in your country, and you are very often felt.
Okay, but let's go to to Ukraine and then to your audience there? Well, you meet quite often, I expect, people who are interested in your works. And what are they? Because I have the impression that you are active as an artist because people need you and your work. They are expecting that you are telling them something important or helping them to survive these conditions. What your thinking about this?
I can't say that I'm really related to the needs of the people who would like to visit the exhibitions I'm producing in Ukraine. For instance, this piece, which is all good, the movie, it's actually shown now in National Museum of Fine Art in Odessa. And every day, or maybe seldom, not every day, like twice a week, somebody actually does write me about visiting the movie, and they say that they cried. Yeah, I understand that it's, again, when you're talking about the same experience, I mean, somebody who in Ukraine or Ukrainian, and I'm also Ukrainian, so it works well. But if to talk about the general audience, I think it's maybe more question to Anna and Martina how they think about this. I don't think this what you said, that I could really be so big if somebody needs my art and then I'm ready to do this. It doesn't work like this.
Okay, thanks. So let's go to Katerina. So you named her. So Alekhina said that these trials to express in, let's say, to use universal language of art to translate this experiences quite often fail. So what's your impression when you are moving between Ukraine and Western world, and what's your impression about work of Ukrainian artists trying to say about something about this war and their feeling about it, and is it possible to understand what's going on there?
I would probably start with sharing the understanding, which, you know, for me probably came as a bit of a surprise some time ago. But first, that there's a limit to understanding. There's a limit to understanding of everything. And as much as we want to try to understand certain things that we didn't live through, it's possible only to a certain extent. And I think this is part of a important realization on both sides of, you know, the artist or, you know, people in general that are trying to convey something, you know, the pain, the loss, the tragedy, but also on the part of the audience that, you know, us, we will never understand certain things fully, certain things we didn't live through. And the second thing is that there is no universal language of art. And I think this is actually the most important thing. Art is not universal. Art is very much, I mean, in a very wide sense, not just visual art, but art is a practice. It's very much connected to experience. It's very much connected to what kind of circumstances the artist lives through or lived through. And I think this is a part of the, you know, the dilemma or the part of the mistranslation between not only Ukrainian artists, because if you look around the world, you know, most world is not peaceful, unfortunately, but that's just how it is, and not happy in the way the Western world is happy. So this mistranslation and misunderstanding between, let's say, the West and the rest, you know, in the Ukrainian case, it's closer space-wise. You know, Ukraine is a bit closer to the rest of Europe than, I don't know, Sudan, for example, right? I mean, that's far away. We have no idea what's happening there. But Ukraine is here. We assume that we understand what happens there. But do we really? And is it possible to even try to understand, with a limitation of understanding, of what happens in Ukraine and what Ukrainian artists, well, for 10 years, but especially for the last almost 3 years, are trying to say without stepping out of the comfort zone and saying, okay, art is not universal, art is not what we expect it to be, Art can be painful, unpleasant, uncomfortable. It can be, bring you a feeling of guilt of not doing enough. Because you and us, we all were not doing enough to stop this war. And this is also part of the message from Ukrainian artists. We are all not doing enough. And certain things are, maybe they're not easy to do, but they can be simple. And Alevtina talks and draws about it, very often. Just stop the Russians. And that will end the war. There is no complexity, even though it's not an easy thing to do.
Okay, but let's follow your comment, and it's quite obvious that art is not transparent. To understand it, we need help of critics, of curators, of institutions, and of the whole infrastructure to help us to understand what we are seeing in pictures or what we are seeing in movies and so on. So what about us in the West? So are we doing enough to build this kind of infrastructure to help us to understand what you, Ukrainian people, artists, writers and so on, try to show us?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about infrastructure, although it's also important, but I think it's a different topic. What I'm saying is that to understand art, we have to make an effort to understand where this art comes from. It's not about, the artistic language, it's not about the legacy, it's not about the forms and shapes of media, which is also important, of course, but I think that's the second level of understanding. But the first level, and for Ukrainian art now, it's absolutely important, is to understand where it comes from. So to bother to at least read the news and bother to learn, what is happening in the country. Not once in a while, not once a year, but daily. Keep it in the focus, as much as possible. And that's a lot of work, because again, we're not talking only about Ukrainian art. If we want to understand what the art is talking about, we have to bother to understand what is happening around the world. What are those news that we usually sort of pass by and say, okay, it's somewhere far away, it's not important. I don't have enough, space and energy to, care about it. But we need to care, and then we can start understanding what different artists are talking about, and also how the art from very different places, the art from South America, the art from Africa, the art from Ukraine, the art from Indonesia, can be connected, not formally through the art language or through a medium, but connected by what is it trying to tell us and what is it talking about. It will still be different, but then we can see also a lot of solidarity, between maybe very unexpected, artists or very unexpected contexts. But that requires a lot of inner work. That requires us to care and to bother to learn what's happened somewhere far away. We have our own problems, like why would we do it? But we probably should.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Anna. So it's a similar question, but with some specific additions. So we in Poland quite often believe that we are in a better position than other Western nations because we are so close to Ukraine and we understand simply by our genes what is going on in Ukraine. But I'm not believing in this, that's true. But you have better experience in this. So what are the biggest problems with understanding? Because we are quite often, we have exhibitions like here, in this place. We had many others in Lublin, in Warsaw, and so on. We had an opportunity to have a direct contact with all these expressions of what's going there, and have we really understood this effort.
Thank you very much for this question, and I would like to start from thanking to the Arsenal Gallery for invitation.